Welcome to How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast, a mix of both solo episodes and expert interviews. Our ideal listener is an early career, ambitious, and passionate online language services provider. She is committed to professional growth and achieving success in the fiercely competitive translation and interpreting industry. She balances multiple responsibilities with resourcefulness, values mentorship, is open to learning, and investing in her professional development journey. She embraces technology and seeks to optimize workflow, eager to connect with like-minded peers and build out her professional network. She is determined to overcome challenges and become a sought-after freelance translator. And here's your host, medical translator and translator business mentor, Jason Willis-Lee.
Alex Sanfilippo started his first business age 10. He began selling used golf balls at his neighborhood and realized that he was an entrepreneur. Since that time, he's done a lot: real estate technology, startup, real estate investing, aerospace exec, blogging, public speaking, coaching, and finally, podcasting. And welcome to Freelancer Training on How to Find More Direct Clients, a podcast hosted by myself, Jason Willis-Lee. This is the show that makes digital marketing easier and more fun, using the perfect combo and just the right dose of business strategy and tech. I'm your host, Jason Willis-Lee, digital marketing enthusiast. And today I'm very, very excited to welcome a friend and a colleague. His name is Alex Sanfilippo. Alex is the founder of Podmatch, an amazing platform that brings podcast hosts like myself and guests together. So he brings a very, very unique perspective to our discussion today. Alex, thank you so much for coming on and welcome. How are you today?
Jason, I'm doing great, and I'm really honored to be here today. Thank you so much for what you do and for having me on.
That's so kind of you. Just to break the ice, please tell my audience a little bit about your personal and business journey, and make sure you include that story about selling golf balls at a and I remember a story about you selling secondhand golf balls at a golf course, which means you live in a part of the world where it's warm enough to play golf, which is Jacksonville, Florida. Just tell us a bit about your personal journey, please.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll go back to that story of 10 and I'll accelerate the rest of it. Don't worry. I'm not going to be here all day, everybody, telling my life story. But when I was 10, it was my first quote unquote entrepreneurial venture, if you will. And it was me selling used golf balls. Across the street from the neighborhood I lived in, there was a golf course. And it's funny, all the neighborhood kids played on the golf course because every parent said, go anywhere except for the golf course. So what did? We ran straight for the golf course. Anyway, one day I found a golf ball sitting there and some golfer was riding by on a cart and he said, hey kid, what does that ball say on it? I said, Titleist Pro V1. He goes, I'll give you $3 for it. And I gave him the ball, he gave me $3, and a light bulb went off for the first time in my life of like, hold on, guys, like no more lemonade stands. Like it is time to make some real money. And so we all kind of just built out this system. And I guess I was kind of the lead of it, if you will, at 10 years old, if you can say that. But basically we were looking through the lakes for golf balls, and Saturday mornings we'd sell them. And I'll tell you what, from then on, I kind of had like the entrepreneurial itch. Like I love that. I learned to negotiate with adults as a 10-year-old because, believe it or not, golfers have had a few drinks, want to negotiate the price of golf balls. But from then on, I just kind of carried that into my life. And I did some stuff in real estate, which has always really fascinated me. And then I pivoted to the aerospace industry when the 2006, 7, 8 big crash happened. Specifically, Florida got hit really, really hard. I think everywhere did, but Florida got hit really hard. And so I pivoted into aerospace, which was an industry that was doing well. And I wasn't in anything interesting like an astronaut, skydiver, or fighter pilot. I focused below the atmosphere. And then ultimately, that's what led me into what I'm doing now, full-time podcasting. When I kind of got my fix of corporate, I did 15 years, really loved it. I really did well in that job till my last day there when I left. I was like, all right, it's time for me to go. And that's when I became full-time in the podcasting space. And today, I'm a podcaster first, and second, right behind that, and probably the main thing I'm more known for is Podmatch.com, which is a software that automatically matches podcast guests and hosts for interviews. For lack of a better term, it works very similar to how a dating app would work, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. And so for me, I always just say I'm 100% podcasting. This is where I focus. It's what I do. Beyond that, I love going to the in-person conferences. As a matter of fact, Jason and I we had the opportunity to meet and hang out, spend a lot of time together in January in Orlando, Florida at a conference. And that was absolutely a blast. Like I love the virtual stuff, but it's so good to be able to meet the people that you respect. And as a listener of your podcast, it was really cool to be like, hey, I know this guy, right? Like I've heard this voice a lot. So anyway, so that's kind of it. And then beyond that, my wife and I, Alicia, she's my business partner, but we also just love hanging out. We're community people. We live near the ocean in Jacksonville, Florida, so we spend a lot of time on bikes at the beach, playing sports, and just kind of hanging out with people. And that's just really what we enjoy. And we've really been able to carve out a beautiful piece of paradise here in Jacksonville, Florida.
It sounds like you have an amazing lifestyle, Alex. So you are podcasting more than anything now. Please tell my audience, because they listen to my audience, excuse me, my podcast, but there aren't too many podcasts in my industry. So why is it the most authentic form of P2P marketing, person to person or human to human? And why does that matter now more than ever? Surely we now are looking more for more human connection, not less, with all the AI. Why is it the most authentic form of P2P marketing, do you think?
Yeah, to the point you're making there, I want to hit on first. There's recently a report that came out in podcasting, and it was how podcasters, both guests and hosts, like to communicate with companies. And on the list, there was things like chatbots, there was things like help and support forums. There was all these different options. And number one by far was a direct email to a person who works for the company, not like a third party company. Like they wanted to actually talk to a person. And to your point, I think we just kind of live in this world of AI, which it has its place. But when a person's looking for something for another human, it's very frustrating when you get something that isn't human, right? And so I think that connection is becoming more and more powerful. And the reason I believe podcasting is such a great medium for this is because what we're doing right now, we're two humans having a conversation. And yeah, you might do some editing, but I'm not the clearest speaker, but that's okay. It feels very authentic when Alex isn't perfect, right? If I showed up and made no errors and everything you did was perfect as well, like that doesn't really speak human.
Yeah.
But conversation like we're having now, that's a human practice. That's something that people love to be part of. And when listeners tune in, think about it, like podcasting is like got to be the most intimate form of consumption one can have when it comes to media. It's in your ears. It's you privately. Typically, someone's walking, cooking, cleaning, driving, doing something, right? Like there's something going on while they're doing that, which just causes us to really really understand more, right? Like when we're doing something, like a different sense being used, it helps us articulate more and be able to understand more. But also, again, because it's so intimate, it's like, wow, I'm doing the dishes, hanging out with Jason today, right? Like, and that's just something that builds this connection. So for me, I mean, it's just so authentic. Again, starting with this conversation that you and I are having and bringing everyone else into it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have that image of my listeners doing the dishes, listening to this episode now. But how does showing up as a host, as I'm doing now, and especially a guest? I mean, you're my guest today, but I know you host a podcast as well, and I'm sure your audience is a tad bigger than mine. How does it build credibility as a service provider, for example? Mainly service providers listening to us. There's translators, there's interpreters, there's copy editors, and I kind of lead my tribe or try to lead my tribe and say we should do this and we should do that. How does it build credibility, Alex, and how does it drive warm, qualified leads to our products and services?
Yeah, I'll share and answer this from my own perspective as somebody who hired somebody. So this is going back years, but I wanted to get into some SMS marketing. Are you familiar with that, Jason? Like text message marketing, I guess is maybe what it's called.
Tell me more.
Yeah, at least the idea of it. So basically, it's instead of email campaigns and stuff, you do it through a phone. It's like text message based.
Right.
And so I heard about this a few years ago, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating. I wonder if there's any room for that in my business. And I wanted to talk to somebody who knew that space. I found some software you could use. I'm like, okay, now like I want to know like this. My business makes sense for us. What do I do? I immediately went to podcasts. So I was like, is there anyone who's done any podcast episodes about this? So I started looking some up, and I found one person in particular. He was like the guy talking about it. And one of the software companies was actually, he was on the C-suite of that company. So I was like, oh, fascinating. That's a company I could use. And this is the guy who can teach me how to do it. And so I just listened to a bunch of his stuff. And here's the thing, what happened over time, me listening to a few of them, he developed with me, know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust. I knew his company. I forgot what the other two were called, but I knew his company. I knew I liked the guy. And I could trust him because he was just giving so much valuable information. He basically taught me how to be successful without me ever giving him anything, right? And like that meant a lot to me. So I ended up signing up for his software, and it wasn't inexpensive. It had a price tag to it, but I did that without any hesitation because I felt that that person had already invested so much into me. And that goes back to like it being an authentic form of human connection, right? I felt connected to this individual. And so for me, the credibility was built. So again, it's that know, like, and trust factor. Yeah. Most of the work was done for him. And so I think to me, that's the big benefit of being a guest or having a podcast. Either side of the microphone, you are building this sense of like credibility, but also, hey, I'm an authority in this space or on this topic at the very least. And that to me is huge. So when I think about this from the other perspective though as well. It's for us as individuals, the other thing that it really helps is our own ability to communicate our message. So this is kind of like the hidden value of it. What I mean by that is when you host a podcast, you become more articulate. When you're a guest on a podcast, you learn to explain things the way that people understand.
Yeah.
Because again, you and I are having a conversation, Jason. If you and 10 other hosts keep on saying, Alex, can you clarify that? Eventually I'm going to realize, okay, what I'm saying is not clear. I need to change the way I'm saying this so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And that to me is so huge because I think one of the real reasons that we don't build credibility or get warm leads faster is because we're maybe not articulating what we do super well. And the way you do it is getting the reps, right? The more you talk about it, the more you're able to understand how to communicate it. When you're watching another person's response, but you're like, okay, they didn't get that. Your brain is now like, we need to rewire ourselves to say this differently. To me, that is huge because you're going to build credibility much faster and get more leads when you learn to share your message really well. And that to me, again, that's like the hidden value of podcast guesting or being a host as well.
Alex, what is the biggest mindset shift and the sort of tactical drive that, let's just say there's a listener thinking, oh, I'd really like to get into media, do a podcast, get it up on Buzzsprout, maybe do a YouTube channel and run a podcast through YouTube, through video. And we do video and audio on this show. What is the biggest mindset shift you think for a service provider trying to get attention to the business and just the tactical, tactical tips that you would give someone, a novice, just someone starting out?
Yeah. The first thing I want to share, and this is from my own experience, but avoid perfection is the first thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever had any of that issue, Jason, yourself. Like if when you got into it, you felt like it needed to be better than it was. I'm just actually curious. Did it was that like a factor when you started?
I'm definitely a reformed perfectionist. I've had to learn to launch things imperfectly and do that deliberately. Absolutely. Totally resonates with what you're saying there.
Reformed perfectionist. I've always said recovering, but I like reformed better. I might run with that, Jason.
Well,
That's a good way to say it.
I still am recovering, so I guess it's more
Okay.
recovering than reformed. That sounds very definitive, but yeah. No, please carry on.
Yeah, well, me as a reformed and recovering perfectionist myself, I just want to give this caution. People are not looking for that. I remember one time I had a guest on my podcast, and it was during COVID, and she had a newborn, but she typically had help when she was going to be podcasting because that's what she does full time. And she's like, Alex, like COVID just started. No one can come take care of my kid. I'm gonna have my kid with me while we're recording, and she's gonna make some noise. She's just a baby, like, and I'm sorry. I'm like, no problem. We'll edit it out afterwards. Well, this kid did cry a few times and made some noise, and there was no way for me to edit it out. Like maybe a better editor could have, but back then I was doing my own editing, and I was like, there's no way I can do this. And I was like, oh, man, this is my first episode that has something like this in it. I'm like, but it's such good content, I can't not share it. So I posted it. Well, what do you know? That's my most commented on, most emailed about episode of all. And people kept on saying, this felt really raw. Like, that's exactly where I am. I was listening to your podcast and I thought it was my kid crying at first because I'm at home as well. And so people really resonated, connected with the imperfection in the content. Yeah. And so for all of us, again, I know I'm kind of like, I don't want to go too deep into this, but I think that everyone needs to hear it. Whether you're a host or a guest, start where you are with what you have. Get your message out there before you feel like it's ready, because that might be what resonates with people more than anything else. Just get started. And that's the first thing I want to share. The next thing I want to go into after that is to not focus on big numbers, but focus on the niche and the impact. What I mean by that is there's so many people who get into podcasting as a host and as a guest, both sides. They're like, I need to reach this many listeners for it to be worthwhile on both sides of the microphone. But the reality is maybe that's not the case. Like, what is it that you actually want? What message do you want to get into the world? I had somebody tell me that they were really struggling to get more listeners, and they explained what their podcast was about. And their podcast actually had a lot of listeners, but it was so niche, so focused. I was like, I don't know if there's more people than that. You might have everyone in the world who's already listening. I'm like, so just get better at serving those people and forget about everyone else, because they're not really your people. And so I remind people all the time that, like, hey, if you're going to be a guest on a podcast, or you're going to start one, don't say, how do I keep on making this bigger and bigger and bigger? Say, how do I focus on delivering more value to my niche, my focused group, the people that I know that can really, really help? And so for me, like, I don't really go on big shows or try to. I go on the ones with people that I know I can serve. And Jason, this is a great show that you have here. Like, it's so important that we get a message out on a show like this about podcasting, because there is a benefit for people that listen to this.
Sure.
I don't want to go on a general show about like sports and fitness lifestyle like that. Even if it's huge, it's like, okay, well, I don't really have anything to say there, right? And actually, you had a guest on your show recently. It was Larry Easto, maybe is that
Yes.
you say, isn't it? Yeah,
Correct.
Larry Eastoe, brilliant, brilliant episode, by the way. That was episode 90 from May 13th, 2025. Anyone who didn't hear that, when you're done with this, that's the next one I want you to go to, episode 90 from May 13th, 2025. And Larry said, establish relationships and the rest will take care of itself. And man, how true. And he talked about how like what we deliver is more than just our service. It's the reassurance that somebody can be helped with their problem, right? And so for me, like everybody who's listening, you're like, oh, I don't know if this podcast thing is for me. Like I think that what we really have to think about, the mindset shift is that this can help. This can be beneficial to somebody else because you might be establishing that relationship with them. And again, that only happens if you really have a niche, a vertical, which requires putting yourself on the line saying, this is who I serve. That's who I want to help, right? You have to be willing to do that. I think that those are some of my main points in here, Jason. I could riff on this stuff forever, but I'll see if you have any follow up to that before I keep on going.
Well, yeah, thank you for mentioning Larry. Larry is someone I met on Podmatch on your platform, and
Oh,
he is my first recurring guest. So I've done 2 interviews with him. He's the first guest who's come back, and he pitched me again, and it's such a pleasure speaking to him. He's an elder gentleman, a retiring age, shall we say, and he has an experience of life and a perspective that is just gold dust. And the thing you said about the baby really resonated with me because 2 weeks ago I was in Krakow giving a seminar on personal branding, on building lead magnets and authority frameworks and signature frameworks. And there was a baby in the room, and the baby belonged to Diana, who is a listener of this podcast. So, Diana, hi, shout out to you if you're listening. Diana Godalith, she told me at the conference she's a fan of the podcast, and she brought a baby in, which was just amazing. Baby didn't cry, or not that I could see on the video afterwards there was a baby. I didn't realize during the session the baby was there. So that was just really a fun thing, which linked into what you were saying. Alex, what's the best business advice you've ever received from maybe a mentor, or maybe you've given someone else, you've been a mentor to someone, or I'm thinking maybe you as a mentee receiving some advice. What's the best bit of advice that's stuck in your head?
there's been a lot of it around the idea of perfection, but we already kind of covered that. So I'll go a different route with this. But it was Brendan Bouchard talked about this idea of courage being required for anyone who's going to succeed in any sort of side hustle or entrepreneurial venture. And I had never really thought about courage as being one of the key factors in my overall success. And when I learned that and heard him say that, it really it went off in my mind. Something finally clicked, and I realized what I was missing as a podcaster, as a software provider, as someone who comes from corporate. Like what I was actually missing was courage. And to me, when I really dove into okay, this resonated with me. What does this mean? I pulled this really simple definition, which is this: courage means being afraid, then doing what you have to do anyway. Courage means being afraid than doing what you have to do anyway.
Mm.
And so for me, I realize I'm scared of most things I do. Like I'm not always the most confident person, and sometimes I come across that way, but I'm really not. But I've just learned that like, okay, I'm afraid. This makes me nervous. I'm scared of this, but I'm going to take courage, which means I'm afraid. I acknowledge that, and now I'm going to do what I have to do anyway. And that last part, what we have to do anyway, what I have to do anyway, that is me doing something that furthers my brand, that serves somebody that I say I'm going to serve, that really gets what I'm doing into the world in a bigger, more meaningful way. And sometimes here's the thing, it flops, but that doesn't matter because I got to be courageous. I just get up and I keep on doing that. I think that piece of advice really changed my trajectory as an entrepreneur and as someone who's really devoted to serving the world.
And the thing you're afraid of is failure, right? It's fear of failure, fear of getting up again. And because I have a colleague who's just written a book called The Four Fears: fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, don't have enough time, the imposter syndrome. And he's built a business around the four fears, which is trademarked. And I think all of us can relate to that.
I might
Um,
have all four of those, by the way, Jason. I'm not sure. Maybe it was all four of
I
them,
think
right?
I do as well. Yeah, you do have time. You are good enough. You shouldn't be afraid of failing, and you should get the imposter. And I still get this today, as much as I did 3 years ago when I went into entrepreneurship and I started dabbling with this. Putting a lot of money in and hoping to get some money out. That's kind of what entrepreneurship is. It's taking risks. Um, Alex, using just one word, how would you describe podcasting? If you just had to do one word, and then if you'd like to develop that a little after that, what's the first word that pops into your mind when I say podcasting?
Connection.
Mm, okay. Yeah. P2P connection, right? It's human to human, no
It's
AI.
That's exact. Yeah. I mean, H to H, P to P, however we want to call it, right? At the end of the day, like I just think that there's nothing more powerful. Like for you and I, this, unless maybe you're formerly media trained, you've done tens of thousands of interviews. For most of us, this room right here that you and I are in, this is a meaningful experience that we're having together. And the baseline for all friendship is meaningful experience. An example of that would be like if you've ever done like a whitewater rafting trip or gone to like a really cool like tennis match or something like that, you don't forget that match. You don't forget who you were with. That's called a meaningful experience. And everything that we have with another human being is based upon that. And so for me, I just think the connection that is formed from that meaningful experience is something you can take on for years to come. I still talk to the person I did my first ever podcast with. And I don't know how many years ago that was. And it wasn't a friend of mine, it was somebody I met randomly. And we just had a really great connection. That was maybe 2014 or something like that. Like it was a while ago at time of recording. And I just, again, think connection. Like that's what it's really built for me.
The best investment you ever made? What's the best investment you ever made? Could be a business investment, a personal investment.
Yeah, it was actually like really getting into my faith. I grew up in a religious home, I'd say, which that's fine, but I really like dove into like my faith in Jesus from the Bible, and that has become the foundation of how I run business and how I do my personal life as well. And I'd say there's no better investment than that.
Okay. And what's one motivational tip you abide by daily? How do you stay motivated? You run a busy SaaS business. You're going to have thousands of users. You've got to be putting out fires every day, tech fires, non-tech fires. You've got to be, your schedule's going to be busy. I know it is. What's one motivational tip you abide by every day that keeps your motivation high?
The work will never be finished. And
Oh,
that's a
that's a
quote
good
that
one.
somebody told me one time. The work will never be finished. And as soon as I heard it again, like a light bulb went off, and I was like, man, that's
Yeah.
so true. Because I'm the type of guy, and Jason, I think you and I are similar. We could work until like there's no time left to work, right? Like we could just go forever. Like I can stop sleeping. I don't need to do that, right? But the thing is, no matter how ahead we get or how far along we get on a project, there's just more on the other side of it. And so the idea of being okay with the fact that the work will never be done and being okay with I did enough today, I can turn off my computer and I can pick it back up tomorrow wherever I left off has been extremely freeing for me because I'm an achiever by nature. I want everything to be done. And that's just not the reality of business. It will never be finished. And really abiding by that, I write those words down every day and read them every day because I need that reminder or I will work myself straight into the ground.
Alex, as a leader in the podcasting niche, any final thoughts or takeaways for the audience who'd like to perhaps get on podcasts as a way of getting exposure to their services, or perhaps they'd like to start a podcast like I've done and host? Any final thoughts or takeaways for someone in that mindset, just listening to us chatting and perhaps going in that direction?
Yeah, I think that the best thing that any of us can do is to take pen and paper. I mean, physical pen and physical paper, right? Like to do that and sit down, write down why you think you want to do it. What's the reasoning for you internally? And then in that same piece of paper, write down what you think the benefit would be for somebody else. So why for yourself and a purpose for somebody else that might hear you, whether you're a host or a guest. And then when you think about, okay, this is what someone would get out of it, create what we just call an avatar in the business, which is your ideal listener. So whether you're a host or guest, you have an ideal listener that you say, this is who I can serve. So it goes internal purpose, your why, external purpose, who it's for and how it's going to help them, and then write down the avatar. Fictitious character, give them a name, give them some backstory, right? Like Jason, you even mentioned earlier that you regularly think of your listeners as doing the dishes while they're listening, right? I think that having that mindset of like, this is who I serve, this is what they're doing when they listen, knowing that about them helps you understand one, should I do this in the first place? But two, it really helps you decide like what lane do I go into? When you have someone specific in mind, it's an easy yes or no when you're heading in a right or wrong direction. But if you just say I'm going to start one, you don't really know this stuff, you're kind of running aimlessly. And when we run aimlessly, it's like unspecific goals yield unspecific results. Let's be specific up front so we can achieve something specific that's going to help our brand, our business, and us serve people better.
I think podcasting is such an amazing medium, Alex, because people can be multitasking. They can be doing the dishes. They can be looking after the kids. They can be driving, doing the school run or going to work or somewhere else. Alex, it's been an amazing opportunity to have you on the show. Where can my listeners connect with you or learn more about your work and your expertise, which is podcasting?
Yeah,
Where's the
Jason, thank
best
you again
place?
for having me. Seriously, an honor to be here. Everything I do is at podmatch.com/free. Podmatch.com/free. And that'll just give you a few quick wins, whether you're a podcast guest, host, or aspiring guest or host, that you can consume. You can read in less than, I'd say, 5 minutes. You can go through the whole list. It doesn't ask for your email address or anything like that. It's just a way to help get you set on the right foot and stuff like that. And some of it reinforced that we talked about here today. So again, it's podmatch.com/free. But at the end of the day, I recommend people hang out with you, Jason. I mean, you are a trendsetter in your industry. I really, really respect the way that you're doing things.
Thank you so much. Podmatch.com/free. We're going to get that in the show notes, of course. Okay, let's wrap it up for today's episode of Freelancer Training on how to find more direct clients. Stay tuned for more engaging discussions on the ever-evolving landscape of language and digital marketing. Until next time, remember to stay on your game and future-proof your career in the AI era. Thank you once again to Alex Sanfilippo, and that's me logging out for today. Jason Willis-Lee. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Here's a fun fact about Jason. Jason is a big Indiana Jones fan. Thanks for tuning in to the How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, why not head over to www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com to access all our tools and resources to monetize and future-proof your freelance translation business. And don't forget to hit the plus button in Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or subscribe in Spotify to be notified when new episodes drop. For regular tips and insights, business strategy, or marketing techniques straight to your inbox, please sign up at www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com.